Welcome back, everyone, to another teaching moment here. I'm with Chanel Rosenbaum, a lawyer at Holthe Immigration Law and a frequent contributor to these teaching moments. How are you doing, Chanel?
I'm great. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. Okay, this is a simple topic, right? No problems. Like, why do we even need to do it? How to get your first PR card? Is it really that difficult? Well, you're going to find out. Okay, come on, Chanel. Writing a blog post on this topic. Seriously, how to get your PR card after landing in Canada? Is it really that difficult?
Well, we've just been having a discussion about this, and it seems like there are a lot of different experiences that newly landed immigrants have had. So there is quite a bit of confusion out there. Technically, it should be straightforward, but this you never know what can happen. You might get an officer who has a different way of doing things. You might have a unique
Come on.
circumstance that
You might get an officer who's freaking lazy, doesn't do their job, and then you're left holding the bag. So, okay, let's start right from the very beginning. Some people are going to be watching this video and they're going to be completely new to Canadian immigration. So we always start with a little, bone that we toss to them. So what is the PR card?
So once you become a permanent resident and you've landed in Canada, you are a permanent resident, you get a permanent resident card, which is technically like your Canadian travel document. So this card is an ID document, but it also is what you would then use to re-enter Canada in the future. So you would always need to travel with it, and you would show it at the port of entry when you're returning from a trip overseas, to show that you are a permanent resident and have the right to enter Canada without a visa.
And for those of you who were trying to travel during the pandemic, you also realized very acutely how much power the airlines have. So another huge, important component to these PR cards is getting the airlines to let you board to fly back to Canada. And interestingly, with these PR cards, they're for commercial carriers. If you were to say enter Canada through a land crossing through the US, well, technically you wouldn't even need a permanent resident card. Your confirmation of permanent residence in and of itself is your proof of permanent residence. And some people confuse that, Chanel. They assume that the PR card is the most important thing. But don't you guys lose that confirmation of permanent residence or ECOPR that you were issued. That is the document that confirms you are a permanent resident of Canada. All right. How do you receive it then, Chanel?
You receive it by mail to your Canadian address, which is something that can be a little bit complicated for many newly landed permanent residents, because if they've come from overseas, often they don't yet have a Canadian address. So this is where the confusion has mostly come from around how you get your PR card.
You bet. So if the PR card is a culmination of becoming a permanent resident and IRCC mails it to your Canadian address, there are two ways that people finalize their PR. One is the old traditional way where you're going through the federal skilled worker program or whatever program it might be, and you're completing your landing when you fly into Canada for the first time. And the other is if you're already here through the new ECOPR system that was created and evolved throughout the pandemic. So can you talk a little bit about the inland, Chanel, and then I'll address my crazy experience having worked on the border and what I think officers should be doing compared to what anecdotally we're hearing they're doing or maybe not doing. So what's the inland process like?
Well, so inland, when you're applying for permanent residency, if you already live in Canada, you've provided usually a Canadian address. So IRCC should have that. But close to the time when you should be due to get your PR card, when you are becoming a permanent resident, if you're moving around that time, your address is not up to date. As soon as you get your ECOPR, that's when you should notify IRCC of your changed address to make sure it's sent to the right place so you have access to it and it doesn't end up being sent to a former address where there are maybe new tenants who just throw out the mail that arrives for you.
Yeah. And you guys need to be really careful about this too, because sometimes you will try to update your address. And we all know, if you've had any interaction with IRCC lately, that the web form process is a disaster. Whether or not it actually gets transmitted in time for you to then receive your PR card to the proper address, Who knows? So you need to make sure that if you are changing your address, make sure that you try not to do it in the time period in which you are waiting for your PR card. If you can avoid it, that's the best bet. Keep the address, get your PR card, then move. But if you don't have a choice and you do move, then make sure that you keep good contact with the people that you moved out of and say, hey, the place that you moved out of, even if there's new residents there, you knock on the door and you say, hey, this was an address. I used to live here. I know you're here now, but could you please watch out for this important, package, this envelope from Immigration Canada that has my PR card in it, and let me know. So definitely need to pay attention to that. So we shift then, hopefully the address is right. What about all those people that are coming through that are landing in Canada and do not have an address yet? Some people have friends, some people have family, and they use those addresses. And when you're completing the passport request, it does ask you to provide your address to send it back. But if you're outside of Canada, that's your foreign address. So when you're going through, and this is where Chanel and I have had some differing experiences based on the anecdotal reports of our clients, I have always held the premise that the border officer's responsibility is to confirm your address. And if you do not yet have an address, then they will give you information, and I'll have Chanel explain it in a little bit, as to where you can update your address through a special tool that they have online. But I understand, Chanel, that one of your clients, when they were asking about the address situation, what was the response that the border officer told them?
The border officer didn't want to really do anything to the address and told them they have to sort it out once they get through. So and it provided them with no information on how to actually update it. So once they got through, they had their COPA, they were a permanent resident, admitted into Canada. They called me to ask, what do I do now? Because you told me the officer should check the address and provide information, and he didn't know anything. So how do I go about updating this? And it is very simple, but if you don't have this information, it's not readily available and easy to find. So that's why we've written a little blog post about it and are doing this video.
Absolutely. I was going to jump to the next heading, but let's show right in your blog post. Once again, you guys need to go here. This is actually worth, following and reading, especially if you're a new or soon to be permanent resident of Canada. Definitely read through this blog post so that you're prepared in case you get an officer that doesn't want to do something, including ironing out what your address is. And there's a whole host of problems that can arise if you don't have the correct address. One of the things that I was mentioning to Chanel previously is that when one of the problems we see, or at least when officers wouldn't update addresses properly, that sometimes if they did, they would only do it for the principal applicant and they wouldn't do it for the other dependents. And they had to manually go in and update that. I think the system is slowly getting smarter, that family groups are being all bundled together with the same address, but we had PR cards going to dependents in different locations, to principal applicants at different addresses, and it was a mess. So that can absolutely happen. But Chanel, you talked about this little tool, and we have right in your blog post right here.
Yes, so the link is right there in the blog post. It is an online address notification tool, which you can now use to update your address with IRCC. They say it takes 5 business days for the address to then be updated in the system. And it is a pretty straightforward application. This is a lot easier than trying to contact IRCC by web form. After 5 business days, your address should automatically be updated, and then that is the address that they will send your PR card to.
Yes.
It is important to note that you need to update your address within 180 days of becoming a Canadian permanent resident. If you don't, and you pass that deadline, then you actually have to submit a paper-based application for a PR card. So you have to go through that process, and there's a fee associated with that, which you'll have to pay.
And that's right here in this paragraph here. And if you follow down to the bottom and back to this item here, what if you did everything right, your address was correct, but you don't get your PR card?
So there are a lot of people in this situation at the moment, partially because of delays during COVID. A lot of applicants have waited 6, 12, even more than that months for their PR card. what the information IRCC provides is if you don't receive it, you can submit a solemn declaration concerning a lost, stolen, destroyed, or never received permanent resident card. So the link to that information is in the blog post, and there's a link in the information to a form, which you can download and fill out and send off to them about the lost or stolen PR card. I've also had clients recently who are still waiting for their PR cards that they should have gotten during the pandemic. And there's a lot of conflicting information with that as well, where they've spoken to representatives of IRCC, they've sent off web forms and have been told either to reapply for the PR card, have been told the application, there's nothing in the system that they can see, or have been told just to keep waiting and that you should just wait patiently. But that is tough to do when you are waiting months and months and you haven't been overseas in a long time, you haven't seen your family in a long time, and you really do have trips that you need to book in.
Yeah. So what's the next step then, Chanel, for someone who maybe is running into all sorts of problems with this, or even if they have questions before they even travel to Canada? What's the next step?
So the next step, if you have any questions or uncertainties, book a consultation with us. We can work through this. We can help you if you need to apply for a PR card, if you never got your PR card and need to assess what options you have, then go onto the website, book a consultation, and we can discuss that with you and hopefully find a solution and give some ease of mind.
Yes, and it's super easy right here. Click on book a consult. Choose the time that's available. Chanel has lots of times available for consultations. And yes, her. And if you can't fit in a time with Chanel, one of the other lawyers in Holthe Immigration Law can help you for sure. So Chanel, any final takeaways for people with their PR cards that you'd like to address before we wrap things up?
Yeah, once you get your PR card, it doesn't end there, because you actually have to renew your PR card every 5 years. My key takeaway would be to make a note when you get your PR card of the expiry date and diarize for between 9 to 6 months before your card expires to apply to renew it. You don't want to let your PR card expire and end up without effectively your Canadian travel document and unable to leave Canada until you get it renewed. And although processing times are typically meant to be about 6 weeks for a PR card, during the pandemic, we've seen those processing times, rise to 6-12 months, really long time. So don't rely on that now. Just plan ahead and make sure you've got your new PR card before your current one expires.
Yeah. So we got about 2.5 months here for a permanent resident card renewing or replacing. So, and that changes all the time. So
keep an eye on the
world of immigration, isn't it?
It is. It's unpredictable.
It is. All right. Well, thanks so much, Chanel. And thanks to everybody for watching this one. We'll see you again in another teaching moment. Take care.